Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Nutrition, Wellness, Healthy Eating Practices seminar. I'm at San Ildefonso Pueblo, and I want to give a few shout outs to the Governor Makino, Troy Campbell, Dine Enciso, Marie Campos, Martha Cook, Lenny Pena, Raylene Martinez, and everybody with the SDPI Nutrition Education Program. And thanks to all of you for checking in. This is an opportunity for you to learn some new ways of eating and hopefully support your health. It's interesting in these times. It's been difficult, I think, with the COVID and people being homebound and some people gaining weight, and just in general in our times, there's so much abundant processed food, but a lot of people are confused about how to eat in a healthier way. So we will be presenting monthly on different topics of nutrition, and hopefully it will become clearer to you some simple techniques and tips on how to eat healthier. Most of the focus of the presentation will be on these guidelines for healthy eating. I will touch a little bit on health and wellness, and also will ask you to do an assignment to think about something in this presentation that might be something that you can apply in the next 24 hours, something that you can do, simple change. We'll have a summary and then time for questions and answers. So health is a dynamic process. It involves various different components. It includes physical health, psychological, spiritual, environmental, and social well-being. Certainly, health is also influenced by something called social determinants. Some of you may be familiar with this. These are things that influence our health. Things like, our access to healthcare. Do we have a doctor or healthcare provider that we trust, that we can rely on? Our neighborhood and our physical environment. Do we have access to clean water, clean air? Our social community. And certainly economic stability. Do we have a steady source of income? All of these things come into play to affect our health. And I would argue that in addition to these five, certainly with tribal communities, there is intergenerational trauma that affects overall health. This is a quote from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. And I just want to read the last part because it's the differences in these different components, these conditions, that lead to health inequities or the unfair and avoidable difference in health status. Looking at wellness, again, there's components to wellness, and our focus is going to be on nutrition. But just to get a bigger picture, there's mental health, spiritual, emotional, social, environmental, physical health. And within physical health, there's nutrition. And wellness involves practicing healthy habits on a regular basis to achieve good optimum health. Nutrition is the process, very simply, according to Webster's dictionary, is the process of providing or obtaining the food necessary for health and growth. And in the coming months, we are going to be looking at different areas of nutrition. And hopefully, I will get some feedback from you as to what you would like to learn about, what things you have questions about. So we'll have some time in the next few months to answer some of these questions. I thought as a background, just to mention a few statistics from New Mexico. These are quite alarming. 30% of New Mexicans have high blood pressure. Over 34% have high cholesterol. 11.5% have diabetes. Almost 29% are obese. which is indicated by something called BMI, body mass index of greater than 30, and 44% have inadequate physical activity. So these may not be surprising, but they are concerning. In looking at diabetes specifically, 12.3% New Mexico adults have a diagnosis of diabetes, compared with the general US population of 10.8%. So it's higher in New Mexico. When we look at American Indian, Alaskan Native adults, it's much higher. The diagnosis of diabetes is 16.5%, compared with white adults of 9.4%. And again, these statistics are very much related to these conditions that we was talking about earlier, these social conditions. So I love this slide. This is a picture actually of the San Ildefonso farming program. And we know that healthy eating improves health. There's many, many studies to show this and back this up. So if we can reduce some of the risk factors, things like high blood pressure, cholesterol, obesity, we can lower the prevalence and incidence of diabetes, heart disease, and kidney disease. I'd like to talk a little bit about creating a healthy nutrition lifestyle. And there's a difference between dieting per se and healthy eating. Dieting usually involves some kind of radical change in what you're eating, like eating mass quantities of some type of food or very much restricting certain foods for a short period of time. It's not sustainable. It's hard to keep up over time. And oftentimes what I've experienced with clients is that they refer back to their old habits and they're right back to where they started from. So what we want to look at is how to create a healthy nutrition lifestyle and making conscious choices each day when we go shopping, when we go out to eat, and we make these small changes over a lifetime. So this is really the focus of the presentation today, is some of the guidelines for healthy eating. Some of these things we'll refer to in other presentations, but just to give you an overview of some things that can help to start creating a healthy eating pattern. One of the first things is eating mostly natural foods. And this may be quite different for some of you. Some of you may already be doing this, but a lot of us rely on convenience foods, on foods that are already processed and packaged. And the problem with those is that they have a lot of unknown ingredients, a lot of chemicals, additives, food colors, and of particular concern is there's a lot of added sugar, salt, and hydrogenated fat. These are known to cause harm in the body and contribute to some of the problems we were talking about with cholesterol, hypertension, high blood pressure, and obesity. Whereas natural foods, they come from the earth. You can imagine it growing. You can look at a tree and see an apple, or you can pick a carrot out of the ground, or you can harvest the squash. It usually is one ingredient, and then when you make a recipe, you have a few ingredients of these more natural foods. This isn't always possible, but it's, again, if we can begin to move more in that direction, this will support good health. This is a graphic on salt. And now sodium is something that Americans have a lot of in their diet. The average intake is about 3,400 to 4,000 milligrams a day. And the recommended amount is less than 2,000 milligrams a day, about 1,500 to 2,000. And what can happen is when you have excess salt or sodium in the diet, it contributes to high blood pressure. You start to hold fluids because in the body, it attracts water and it holds water. And then the heart has to work harder to regulate the blood pressure. You may have noticed sometimes if you have a salty meal, you wake up in the morning, you have dry mouth, maybe you feel a little puffy or bloated, things like that. That could be because of too much salt intake. And you'll see these foods are very common, popular foods: crackers, chips, pizza, deli meats, things like this are very high in sodium. So it's suggested, and we'll cover this in a future class, how to read food labels, what to ask when you go to the grocer and you're talking with, in the deli department, how to select items that are going to be lower in sodium. Another area that we're going to touch on a little bit later is serving size or portion control. This can really help you. So this is a diet that is called the DASH diet, and this is a very challenging diet to follow. And I don't necessarily recommend it if you're just starting out. If you're very eager to take a very strict diet, you could consider this. But I present it today just to get some ideas of some things that you can look at doing in your day-to-day diet. This has been studied extensively, and it will drop your blood pressure, 10 or 20 points. So it does work, but it's a challenging diet to follow. I have a picture of this diet, a pyramid. And mostly the reason I included this is to just consider having at the base of your diet vegetables and fruits. And this doesn't include it, but water, good quality water. And then as you go up the pyramid, you're having smaller and smaller amounts. And like I say, this is a pretty extreme diet, but I just wanted to point out the importance of vegetables and fruit. If you can have that as the bulk of your diet, you will immensely help your health. On the sides here, it shows some of the serving sizes. Now this plate I think is very useful, and some of you may have seen this before. It's called My Plate for Diabetes. And it's very easy to visualize, and I use this in my own eating practice. Imagine your plate, and half of your plate, you're going to have non-starchy vegetables. And we're going to talk about what those are and show you some examples of that. And here they are, non-starchy vegetables. Some of these you may not be familiar with, but it's always nice to have a salad. So you could have half your plate with a salad. You may like things like cucumber or carrots, things like that, broccoli. And I invite you to be curious and maybe try something different that you've never tried before. Maybe you've never tried parsley or cauliflower. And our chef, Dine, is going to help with that and give you some ideas of how to really enjoy these vegetables, because they can be very tasty and they can fill you up. But if you're diabetic, they're not going to add too much carbohydrate, and they're not going to have a lot of calories, but they can, help you feel full. So here are the non-starchy vegetables. And then looking over on this slide, you can see this beautiful corn and the squashes and the beans. These are also lovely foods. If you are diabetic, you want to watch your portions for these. And, for example, usually a serving size for a diabetic is about a half a cup or a third of a cup. So getting familiar with using serving utensils and measuring cups and things like that will help you. This slide, lovely display. It looks like some pumpkin soup, some traditional Pueblo foods. So let's talk a little bit about food environment. We talk a lot about what to eat, but let's think about the environment that we're eating in. It's healthy to have a relaxed atmosphere. Eating with other people is also very enjoyable, eating with family and friends. And giving thanks and being appreciative of what you have, it helps you. You want to slow down and savor your food. And in particular, I think a lot of people have problems because they're not chewing their food. We see a lot of problems with indigestion and reflux and things like that. And some of it may be related to just not really slowing down to eat. We tend to eat on the run, gobble our food. So just really take this time to create a relaxing environment. One thing that has been studied quite a bit in public health is the use of technological devices, computer, TV, while eating. And what they have found is that it contributes to weight gain. You tend to have more mindless eating and you overeat. So that's something to think about when you're at sitting down to eat, less devices. So the meal pattern has to do with more about your eating and the intervals of your eating. And this is particularly important for diabetics. It's important to eat at regular intervals. The body is designed really to eat about every 4 hours. And over the years, I've talked with many people and they'll often say, oh, I just eat once a day. This is not helping you, because when you skip meals, your metabolism slows down. So best to try to eat even just a small amount 3 times a day, about every 4 hours, and that'll help keep your blood sugars more even. Another thing to consider is trying to eat your meals at the same time each day within about an hour. And again, that the body likes to have that consistency, that regularity. So these are some things to consider for meal pattern. Now, I love this slide. This is serving sizes. Serving sizes are very important. I was recently talking with my hairdresser, and he's told me that he'd lost 20 pounds. And I said, wow, that's great. How did you do it? And he said, we just cut back on our portions, our serving sizes. And so it's important to know what the serving sizes are versus a portion where you might just sort of ladle out what you want, versus a serving size where it's a measured amount. And so, for example, this would be 2 cups. Typically, like I say, a serving size for rice or pasta would be about a 1/2 cup. It's not very much. You can use your hand to sort of help you gauge. So like typically a fist is about a cup. If you have a thumb size, that's about a tablespoon. So this can be a useful guide for you to give you an idea of how much your serving size is. And then it also lists sort of approximate calories on there if you are interested in counting calories. This slide is something that we will come back to. I think it's really important to understand the process of making a change. You are looking at making some big changes in your health, in your diet. This requires, some forethought and some planning and preparation. And this diagram is used a lot in healthcare, and it really just outlines the 5 stages of behavioral change. And, if you're looking at this tonight and watching this presentation, you're at least beginning to explore the idea of making some changes. Maybe you're preparing to make action. And then once you make those changes, you're in that active stage. The challenge is the maintenance, the maintaining of this, just the day in, day out, week in, week out. And so this we'll come back to. In terms of goal setting, I think goals can really help you to achieve your goals. And this is the SMART goal method. Some of you may be familiar with it. It just stands for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. And I will invite you to maybe set a goal for yourself for the next 24 hours, what you can do today to improve your health, some simple thing that over time can help you. If, for example, you were looking at wanting to lose 50 pounds by August for your son's wedding, that's not a realistic goal. And so you want to set goals that are realistic, that are achievable. It may not even be possible for you to lose that much weight, but there are goals that you can set, knowing what you want to achieve, and then I might point out as well that starting on Monday, I will be available for nutrition consultations, and you can check with Raylene about the appointments or check online to sign up for that. And we can look at some of these things about goal setting for yourself and individualize it. So these are some ideas that I came up with, and you may have some ideas. You may be working on some things right now. It's important to know what works for you, and it's going to be different for different people. But typically, it doesn't work to say, I'm never going to drink soda again, or I'm never going to have fast food again. Instead, think about cutting things in half. Again, eating smaller portions, watching your serving sizes, measuring things. Maybe if you eat a lot of candy, maybe cutting that in half. Or fast food, maybe trying to pack your lunch more instead of relying so much on convenience foods. So in summary, we've talked about eating less processed foods, in particular, really trying to cut back on the salt and sugar, eating more natural foods. Again, can you imagine it growing? Is it in the garden? Can you see it on a tree in the ground? Being aware of your serving sizes, eating more non-starchy vegetables. This will help fill you up, but it's not going to give you excess calories, and there'll be less salt and sugar in those. And most important, take the time to enjoy your food. So I thank you for your time and attention, and I will now answer any questions or listen to any comments that you may have. And thank you again.